the second part of the previous video. So I was just uploading this video, and I hear Emily Harper talking about the fact that she had people who are preachers, like they were given like religious channeling or religious, yeah, something like that, to her, and start talking about things that they say to her. Their prediction was actually right. She is preaching to a crowd of people. It's just not in the church. But another thing, Saturn Pisces is, of course, people are going to be looking at, let's say, the shamans, the healers, the astrologers, okay? And they're going to be, because this is Pluto in Aquarius, a lot of people are going to be wanting evidence, okay? A lot of people are going to want, like, give me concrete evidence, give me this, give me that. And that can create both scrutiny, but it can definitely bring into discussion the topic of spirit and matter, what is seen, what is unseen, the effect of the unseen, and growing technology. Like I would really be, you know, I'd be cautious about using gaslighting towards people who are remote viewing or anything like that, because like we're gonna pull up the technology that you have to observe these things. Waves, waves, waves. And so think about Albert Einstein when he created his theories, general and particular relativity theory, and he began to offer experiments that we will in the future be able to do to refute, to be able to refute his theory or to test his theory. Now you must remember things like remote viewing or channeling, they are senses, so you have to like, know the science. Most people, but on the other hand, because this is Aquarius, a lot of people are going to know the science. A lot of people are going to know that you cannot talk about astrology without talking about non-linear dynamic systems. You cannot ask for someone like, I don't know, like your chart. There's so many components that could give me the same vibe or the same result, or the same delineation. And yet there are sets of things that are involved in sets of things, just like your neural functioning, okay? So I don't know to tell of whether you're a Taurus or you're a this or you're a that. Some people delineate like that. I had a student delineating my ascendant through my eyes. She's like, your Pisces ascendant, can't you see? Can't you see your eyes are highly Piscean? The shape of your face is highly round, okay, and big, okay. That is Jupiterian, and I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Like I wouldn't know. Um, and but I didn't tend to that so much. I tend to other things in astrology, and we are going to have a lot of people associate, and like we're going to have a lot of both wrongs and rights, because people are going to be doing science more, even when it comes to the nonlinear type of science that has also to do with energy. I recall when I was learning politics and governance, then our department of politics and governance were struggling to look like science, what Feynman would call cult-like sciences, because it tried to give it the image of science, but actually was taken away from the science, because this is a social science. There's a lot of components, there's a lot of relativity involved, there's a lot to say about a lot of things. While physics department was beginning to talk about the components of matter being both spirit and matter, whether it is because of the 2031 world religion dumbfuckery, or it is simply because the pulling to understand the world and the cosmology of the world on all its level. I want to emphasize again, when we have the word mathematician, this is thanks to researchers like Chris Brennan, when we have the word like mathematician in ancient times, it usually means also an astrologer, because back then we didn't have lovely people like Peter from astroseek.com or astro.com that assist people like me I would not be able to do astrology if I had to computate charts, because I make the small mistakes with the computation. So I can be, in modern times, I can be a profound astrologer, whereas in previous times, I would not be able to tend to the art. And this is also why I didn't tend to astrology when I was first exposed to that, because I didn't know how to computate chart, and I wasn't good with computation. But at the same time, in the past, that was a mathematician, because mathematician, you had to do mathematics to come up with the chart, but all mathematicians were astrologers. Okay, it's going beyond even the understanding that there was no distinction between astrology and astronomy. And I'm sorry, if you are a good astronomer in 22nd century, you should be you should be at least, you should know astrology, right? You should already begin to understand astrology. You can't be a good astronomer without pointing the fact that the blood flow is in excess when the moon is increasing, and if you need to do, let's say surgery. Okay, I'm not even talking about Mars or things that are more intricate than would be noted by astrologers. And by the way, we're going to be seeing research in astrology that is looking more like other types of research we have. That's going to be both cult-like sciences, because people are going to try to prove themselves to something that actually they don't need to prove themselves to. Or alternatively, it's going to be useful information, where we have large N studies of that placement of Mars in the chart, or that transit of Mars and the blood flow, and so on. And people are going to be doing that a lot more seriously. People are going, as a result, people are going to take astrology more seriously, and you have to come with the components of Pluto in Aquarius as cults. So there's going to be also scrutiny about science and religion. I have to tell you, the people that criticize religion the most are sacrificing children on the same altar to the same snake goddess, okay, that doesn't even need that. Okay, again, there's a different, you can be complete atheist, but to dedicate time to scrutiny against religion, you'd have to be okay, you'd have to be poisoned in some way. But also the same religious people that preach to you about God and divine and don't do this and don't do that are sacrificing children on the same altar with the same snake goddess, okay, that they tell you not to worship. Okay. So that's just Saturn giving reality check on religion, but it's going to be the conjoining of religion and science when ruling Pluto. For example, when I was in university and I began to hear about, researchers in physics that were checking the writing a PhD, and the component of both the spiritual component, the spirit and matter component of not an atom, that's my work, but of an atom. Oh, I accidentally have scientific contribution. I have so much scientific contribution on this channel that is ridiculous. And that's just the beginning. I mean, Pluto is just ingressed. So, yeah, we are in the, although it does move at times in history. And so when I was first seeing the researchers that do that, I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. I got a politics department that's looking like cult-like sciences because they are insecure about their sciencey part. Whereas in physics, which they're exploring, okay, the non-linear, the spiritual, the this, the that, it's really fascinating. And so that was a form of, also, it's not ideation, but Saturn is like a reality check that they've been trying to control the world with one world religion, And so the supposed scientific advancement we see with science and spirituality and science and religion, they have an agenda, okay? So that is facilitated because blah, 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 blah. Now, that doesn't mean that some of these things aren't true. Okay, if I go back to Emily Harper's short, then she was like, yeah, there was these religious preachers and that would be really, isolated. So I went to them and they told me like weird stuff that I don't know, like I'll be talking to a crowd and I'll be preacher. And I'm like, that's what you're doing. Okay. You're talking to a crowd and you them preaching. It's just that it's not as a priest in the church, it's as a makeup artist in front of people who actually listen, which is one of the best ways to get crowds. It's like being a makeup artist, right? And you talk about really important things through your personal experience, but there's also preaching about religious trauma. That was one in one correct. Okay. So this is kind of like a reality check on channeling. So people are going to put that into scrutiny, but as a result of the discourse, people are also going to find out, hey, that was actually a thing. And I love to give, it's the time of the season. Whenever something is in Aquarius that happens, I love to give the example of Austin Coppock, the way he became astrologer, because he was one of those sciencey people that look into like psychology and stuff, and he was a gamer. So he wanted to win everyone in the game, and he was looking for like personality analysis stuff. And then astrology was one tool that, let's say, Jung used. So he wasn't taking that seriously at all. You know, and oh my God, I actually delineated what I wanted to say right now, but I'm not going to say it. Anyway, something about academia and gassy giants. But the thing is that he wasn't taking astrology seriously at all. And then he said, oh, well, let's try to predict the death of people. And he was successful. So he stopped doing that and became an astrologer. If you ask where is his Saturn, that would be Virgo, right? Yeah. So, and Virgo is accuracy. So he was extremely accurate in delineating the deaths of people. Okay. If I think about Nikola Stojanovic, he had ascendant Virgo. And he was coming up with degree theory. So think about Mercury as numbers. And yes, and the way that he would observe, okay, and try to delineate every single detail gave him precision astrology. Okay, he wasn't assassinated for no reason. Okay, the one day he suddenly got COVID. Yes, of course, with 18 degree in the chart. But of course it was COVID. Yeah, of course we believe you. That's the person that's responsible over me being able to do water expands upon cooling, reliant on degree theory. Now, of course, degree theory doesn't work one-to-one. There are many significations of death and so on. No science works. No exact science works one-to-one. Okay? This is why, for example, when you build a car, it takes a couple of times until you get it right. Okay? I was going to IKEA and I was trying a chair that is like a rocking chair. And it looked very lovely, but it wasn't so comfortable. Why? Okay, because it takes a while to test the product. And that would, maybe it would fit for children, but it wasn't marketed as a chair for children. And that is an attempt. Okay, is this comfortable? Is it not comfortable? You have to test it because essentially the components, the way we think, the way we comprise them, and the way we apply them don't always work one-to-one, and we can't expect that. And this is why when you're going to the store to try on clothing, or before you had an atelier, they would take your, they would seize you every day to take, measure you, but then you would test the clothing first and have corrections and adjustments. Same thing when you come to get astrological reading. Um, and same thing for channeling. Okay, when I was doing channeling experiment, it seems like MK Ultra was up on the radar, and I got a lot of information, right? Um, but that's a part of doing experimentation. So again, you gotta know the sciences. And don't expect to be victorious over people that have been living, breathing. Okay, unless you want to create another Galileo Galilei. Like when I say MK Ultra, and you think it's going to go with one of those gaslighting things where you're sacrificing children on an altar, raping and torturing people on film to get them to be susceptible to mind control, well, that was also done to you. Don't be expecting that gaslighting to, oh, that they're crazy, they said this. Okay? It's gonna work kind of like what happened to Emily Harper's. Like, they were saying all kind of weird things, like, I'll be speaking to crowds and I'll be preaching. Okay? In the best of cases. But in here, it's gonna work. And I love Emily Harper, okay? Like, that's not, I watch her channel constantly. I think religious trauma is a horrid thing. And also cult-like sciences trauma is no less horrid. She lost a sister to cult-like sciences. Okay, and so I nearly lost me to cult-like sciences and cult-like medical team. Okay, because of cult-like academic people. They didn't like the fact that my research leads to exposure of MK Ultra on a scientific base. Okay, I had to take a break from academia for a reason. They were trying to make me ill in every which way, and they were doing that by witchcraft. Okay? Don't expect that thing to work. You're gonna be creating a Galileo Galilei. I mean, thanks for making me famous for the next 500, 10,000 years. Why did I say 10,000? Oh, because of Sedna. Okay? So again, a good scientific discussion is in place, but they didn't discover about Da Vinci, I think, until hundreds of years after his death. It was like, oh, that was a nice painter. So was Hitler. Okay. So, and I'd be really cautious, especially when Saturn is in Pisces, because Pisces is Neptune karma. I'm talking about 500 years, 300 years, with Sedna, 12 millennia. Okay? So I'm like, you want to argue with me? Okay. I mean, I'll be famous for 12 millennia, and you'll be like, who that dumb fuck that thought that was wrong because of the church or whatever dogma of sciences they had at that historical time where they were polluting people to death and calling it medicine. Okay? Like and that's the thing, that take a humble achievement, like, I don't know, these beta blockers are causing autonomic muscles to not contract. We know that. Famous autonomic muscles in the body: intestines, heart, brain, lungs, um, eyes. Okay. That's just a humble common sense achievement, and making them worldwide historical glorious scientific revolutions. Okay, I have some great contributions. I mean, I think that the fact that denuclearification is something we have to do with abolishing satanic abuse, and famine is something that we can fight with both the half moons and an additional cultural thing of like not murdering women and children. Um, I think it's an old, ancient shamanic knowing that even Inuits had. I mean, look at Sedna. But the scientific argument about this could make me into like way more world renowned, history acclaimed 10,000 years from now. We are going to hear about her person that says something so basic. And I'm like, just don't waste your energy. Like there are there are other scientific contributions that I may make. There are other scientists as well. But then if you want to, then I guess that then although it does move, okay, then and if that affects people's life, like in society, housing, I don't know, food, nervous system. I mean that would also make me like a important, innovative like leader that is just like, and I'm just like a common person trying to live a good life, right? Don't turn this into a crusade. You're gonna end up as that name of that emperor that was trying to restrict that scientist. Either nobody remembers that name, or if they do, and I'd like to talk about Rudolf Hess. So we all know who Rudolf Hess was. It's not much conversation. But I'd like to remind us that that was very likely a person who was told by the cult that he's going to be a very, very important man in history. And a lot of people are going to hear about him. Okay? So they weren't lying. And the thing is, it's just like Da Vinci or Galilei or mathematicians or mathematikoi, okay, which is astrologers. There are only certain times in history where you're going to be successful. But we're heading to like the golden ages. So again, you want to go against a woman scientist, or you want to go against a man who looks into nonlinear dynamic systems, or he's like, okay, fine, you will have very limited success. Maybe in this life you would be considered as like, oh, they smashed them, they won this, they this. And I hope you will not remember past life if you ever reincarnate here, because it's going to be quite embarrassing. Okay, and I said it. I mean, who knows what my past life? Maybe I was the dumb fuck in the past and I was like smarter in this life. I don't know. Okay, so I was looking at Kim Jong Un chart, and he had Ketu in 12 degrees Sagittarius, where I have my Uranus retrograde. So it's not impossible that in past life I was his astrologer, or he was my astrologer, and in this life, okay, this like I was reading his chart. Ketu is where we came from. Also Pluto. Um, it's interesting when I think about this, because it seems like the although it does move is something I came from. Some sort of a religious dispute, rebellion against an orthodoxy Saturn in a Capricorn religion with this pyramidal structure that did satanic abuse, Saturn in Scorpio in the ninth, Pluto on the 0 degree of knowing everything about the world, and Uranus, which is a religious revolution, astrology, cosmology, and although it does move. Like, that's not impossible. Either it was that or it was something of that sort. My Rahu is in the fourth house, like, but it's ruled by the 22 Saturn. I guess in this life, it's not about me being slaughtered for having science, but I got quite a little Mars to combat that. Au revoir.